mind thing is you have to win.
Ill intent, violence, physicality, pain. Enough is enough.
Welcome back to the Just Win podcast. That's Tashan Reed. That's Vic Tafur. I'm Ted Nguyen. And today we'll be previewing the Browns game. I'll give my thoughts on Carolina Panthers loss. I looked at the all 22 and man, it was rough. It was a bad one. But there were some correct things.
Is that breaking news? It was rough.
Yeah, we need the all 22 for that one.
I mean, there are times when it's like it's a rough game, and then you go back and like, oh, just like some encouraging things here. It wasn't as bad as you thought, but you go back and you look at that game, and you're like, oh, wow, that was just as bad as I thought it was going to be, maybe even a little worse. But yeah, we'll get into that, and then we'll talk about injuries, and we'll get into the Browns game. Browns are another team that are struggling, but we will not use the winnable game tag ever when we're talking about the Raiders. But just getting to my thoughts after watching the game, run game is absolutely terrible. I mean, they are bottom of the league in every single rushing metric, and not just the bottom of the league. Like, it's by a wide margin. Their rushing success rate 20%. I think the next closest team's at 30%. It's rough. And I know you guys talked to Luke Getsy today. He said they weren't trying to force the run, but they went run pass sequence 4 times in that game, a bunch of first down runs. So it really did feel like they were trying to get the run game going, and it couldn't do it. And watching it, it wasn't an offensive line issue like I thought it was. I mean, obviously you would want the line to get a little bit more push, but I thought they actually did fine. I think Colton Miller is starting to get healthy. He's starting to look a lot better. The issues are more so with the tight ends and the blocking assignments. Like, there was just a couple times where you have 2 guys blocking a linebacker, nobody blocking a strong safety. Zamir White looked like he wasn't in sync with the offensive line a couple times. So these are issues that are correctable. I know a lot of fans want to like move into this power run scheme. I don't think that's the answer either, because the offensive line, they're built like zone blocking guys, and I thought they zone blocked pretty well. In my opinion, they just need better blocking from their tight ends and a little bit better running from their running backs. And I don't think you change a run scheme based on who your running back is. You should cater more to the offensive line, and maybe Madison's a better fit for the outside zone system. But I think you stay the course and you just correct what you need to correct. But if you're going to go and all of a sudden scrape away the old scheme and decide to put in a new scheme, then you're going to run into more problems as far as trying to, acclimate to this new scheme.
Yeah, I mean, the run game's as bad as advertised. Our Derek Klassen, he wrote a just kind of recap story after this last week's games, and I think you mentioned success rate. It's like an efficiency statistic that basically, changes based on the situation in the play, but it's basically if this was a productive play or not. And they're at 20%, which is the lowest mark since they began tracking that data, which is 2000. So they're literally the worst rushing offense of, the century from an efficiency standpoint. And, I don't think we thought they were necessarily going to be like a juggernaut running team this year, but this is worse than expected. And like you said, I mean, it's multifaceted in terms of what the issues are. Like, the blockers just haven't performed well. I think they've had some struggles with adjusting to the new scheme. And then not just the offensive linemen, but you mentioned in your breakdown on Twitter, it's the tight ends, it's the receivers. Nobody's really doing their part. And then, of course, the running backs. Zamir White particularly hasn't been that great at hitting open holes when they are there and taking advantage of plays where maybe a 2 or 3 yard run could have been an 8 or 9 yard run. While Alexander Madison's more comfortable in the system, I don't think he was more comfortable in the Vikings system, for his career before he joined the Raiders. And he was a pretty inefficient runner there too. And so I don't think he's going to be that much better than Zamir. I think Zamir's a lot more physically talented and has more upside. And so I agree with you that they should stick with, him as the lead back. But ultimately, when it comes to the run game, they're going to have to do a better job of blocking up front and get on the same page from a schematic standpoint. Because right now, guys just don't seem to really know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it's all 11 guys in terms of the run game. I think it's you mentioned the tight ends. The O line still is not getting enough push, and both running backs haven't been great. But I want to see a different approach. I want to see maybe passing the ball to establish a run. I think you have these quick hitting options with Devontae and Bowers and Jacoby and Trey. I think guys who can get the ball to pretty quickly and get teams in the heels a little bit, then try and run the ball. I think what it was tried last week. I know Luke said it wasn't forcing it. Like the phrase he used was establishing a run, but if they know you're going to do it, you don't do it well to keep doing it, you are forcing the issue. I think you got to try something different. I think, and the Browns are a tough defense, but you got to try and get them guessing. Not like that. If they know it's coming and you can't do it anyway, that's a bad combination. So, yeah, I think Luke Getsy's a pretty upbeat guy. I know fans are kind of getting tired of him, but he's trying to say that it's getting better in practice, and they're making strides. So you have to hope he's correct, and I think they're going to keep trying it. I think they're not going to try a different scheme if this is what it is, for at least for a little while. So we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, and I don't doubt. I mean, I'm not saying he's not telling the truth with they're getting better practice, but it's probably not what fans want to hear. But maybe they are, and we'll see. We'll see them get better in games. A problem is like I see the same mistake as far as assignments happening repeatedly. So I'm wondering, like, what is there something they're teaching the players that's making it hard for them to execute, or is there like some sort of rule in their system that is causing these problems? Because if it's happening repeatedly with different players, then I feel like it's not just like one guy with brain farting and messing up. I feel like there's something wrong with the system that they have to get sorted out. But like with how inefficient the run game is, they're just wasting plays at this point. Um, like you said, they should be a pass to run team. They still have to run, yeah, here and there to keep the defense honest, but you got to be honest with yourself at this point, and you're just wasting plays. Another thing with offense, yeah, Gardner Minshew just not good in the pocket. He's created his own pressures by holding on to the ball. There's times when he has clean pockets and he runs into pressure. PFF has him rated as ranked the fourth highest as far as pressure percentage created by the quarterback. The number one guy was Bryce Young, and he was number one by a long stretch too, which is part of the reason why he got benched. But yeah, Minshew fourth highest as far as pressure rate attributed to the quarterback. Offensive line I thought was actually fine after the rewatch. It was more the players around them that didn't play well, and maybe this was the offensive line's best game. Um, Glaze, came in for Munford, and he gave up some pressures, but played better than expected. So we'll see where they go from there, but it's something to build on. But also have to remember that the Browns' defensive line is going to be a lot more talented than the Panthers' defensive line.
Yeah, I think with the offensive line, something that people have asked a lot about is, you know, going back to the previous blocking scheme. But when they started having success toward the end of last year, it was when they started to lean more into the zone-based blocking scheme. Under McDaniels, it was kind of a mix. They used some gaps in zone, but that after he got fired and Antonio Pierce took over last season and they started having success down the stretch, especially when Zamir White, was filling in for Josh Jacobs, it was zone blocking. So it's just, that's what these guys are best fit for. Is the issue isn't necessarily the type of scheme that they're running; it's the execution. From a pass blocking perspective, like, I definitely think Minshew has a tendency to hold on to the ball a little bit and try to create plays, but he's about league average in time to throw, so it's not like an abysmal, you know, just he's just holding it, and it's not on the offensive line at all. Like, I do think the offensive line still has been poor when it comes to pass blocking, particularly the tackles. Colt Miller's had a rough year coming back from shoulder surgery, and either whether it's Munford or Glaze out there, they've had some breakdowns. And Glaze had a tough matchup last week going against Jadeveon Clowney, a rookie, rookie offensive tackle going against a veteran edge rusher like him. Like that's a tough matchup. He's licking his chops, and you would think that with a full week of practice, because Thayer Munford hasn't been practicing so far this week with a knee and ankle injury, Glaze could perform better now that he knows that most likely he's going to be the guy to suit up on Sunday. So we'll see. It's one of those things where it comes down to time on task and chemistry, and I think the offensive line shuffling has probably not helped either. They've had 4 different combinations in the first 3 games, and they're still working to find that starting 5 that works for them. And think and Getsy talked about this today. It's just kind of difficult, when you're a new scheme, new guys next to each other to get on the same page and have consistent results. And so as soon as they're able to figure out, what starting five they're going to run with, that'll probably improve their chances of getting some better results moving forward.
I think Paris Jackson will get more run this week. I think he showed enough where you can see why they picked him. I think with Ted's offensive line grades, I agree it was their best pass pro game of the year. I'm not sure about the running game. I think it's still there's still an issue there. But the pass pro I thought was the best it's been all year. I thought Paris Jackson did a good job on those. I think we'll see him. And we're talking about their ideal combination. I know they've tried different lines so far, but I'm guessing the ideal five is with him at the left guard spot, right? Sorry, left guard. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Parham was to the right side. Yeah, so him at the left guard. They got the two tackles. I mean, I don't know if Mumford's back this week, probably next week, but I think he and Glaze are pretty close. As far as Glaze has a little more upside, but I think they're both serviceable for this year at right tackle. So I think those two guys, and you got Colton and James and Parham. So I think that's ideally it should be a pretty good line, a pretty solid line if they can get this run scheme going in terms of the wide zone.
Yeah, I mean, Powers Johnson, when he played on Sunday, he was rotating in at right guard behind Dylan Parham. It's been kind of weird that they haven't explicitly said why they did that. Because I do think between the two starting guards, Whitehair and Parham, I would say Parham's played better, in my opinion. It's not like he's been great, I don't think, but I think Whitehair's been pretty clearly worse. And so I agree. I think that's their best five this week, given the injury to Mumford. It's going to be Miller, Jackson Powers Johnson, Andre James, Dylan Parham, and Glaze. But I guess another spot potentially to keep an eye on, Andre James. I think he hasn't played. We haven't talked about him a whole bunch, but I don't think he's played very well this year. Both Powers Johnson and Parham are guys that could potentially bump over the center. So we'll see. This unit is playing really bad right now, and I don't think you can say that anything's off the table when it comes to them continue to tweak with their lineup moving forward.
My guess as far as why they put JPJ in place of Parham, I think Parham's a little hurt. I think they're not saying it, but I think he's a little banged up, I think. So I think they're trying to protect him and not say what it is. But to me, that's a logical reason why they do that last week. I think they don't see that as being, JPJ's permanent home. So I think it was just a matter of let's get him in, let's get him going. This guy may could use a few plays off. So, but we'll see.
All right, yeah, and like I said, it's encouraging. I think Colton Miller is getting healthy, and he looked pretty solid to good against the Panthers. And just last few notes from the All 22. Um, I think Spillane had his worst game as Raider. I mean, he was just late on, passing assignments. Didn't have much zone awareness, missed tackles. Probably worst I've seen him in a Raider uniform. Nate Hobbs got, and a few other players too. It wasn't just Nate Hobbs, but there was Deontay Johnson was matched up against him in a few times and just beat him clean. So yeah, when they're in base, Nate Hobbs is playing corner on the outside, not Jacorian Bennett, and the Panthers definitely took advantage of that matchup.
Okay,
And we talked,
I was going to say in Splain's defense, I thought, obviously Diablo was out, and I thought Masterson was pretty bad. I think
yep,
so maybe Splain's trying to do too much, trying to cover too much ground. I think if Diablo doesn't play this weekend, I imagine we'll see Eichenberg. I think Masterson probably had his shot and probably won't get another one. So I'd imagine Eichenberg might get a shot here if Diablo can't come back.
yeah, it's just not very athletic. Diablo's speed and athleticism was definitely missed in the middle of the defense. And the most encouraging part was I thought Tyree Wilson actually played a pretty good game as far as run defense. I was watching his get off. His get off looked much better. He created a lot of problems for the Panthers run game. He didn't play a ton of snaps. I think they're trying to just work him back in from injury. And like we mentioned, he had a really good rush on the left side where he got in almost untouched just based on his get off. So encouraging signs, and they're going to need him to have a pretty big game against the Browns. But I think that's the one bright spot I think from this Panthers game. Let's talk about Luke Getsy. You guys talked to him today. Do you guys have a sense that there's any heat around Luke Getsy? Is his bum getting warmed, as Vic Tafur likes to say?
Yeah, that's my big saying. No, I think he's fine. I think obviously if they make a change, might be a quarterback at some point. But I think, like we talked about, the main issue is the running game. They're trying to figure it out, and Antonio Pierce that's what he wants to do. He's a run first guy. So I think it definitely bothers him. I'm sure Luke hears about it. Like, why are we so bad in running the ball. So whether it is changing their line or maybe changing running backs or changing the scheme at some point, I think that's definitely his main objective right now and his main job duty is to get that game going. And I think but they should have enough weapons otherwise to score points. So I'm sure he's a little frustrated. He mentioned today that they had the offense going that one half against Baltimore, and that's pretty much it, second half. So we got to try and look at what they're doing there and have that be their main rules going forward. But I think there's enough talent on this roster where he's still optimistic. I know fans roll their eyes, but that's the approach he has to take. He has to, if you keep at it, it'll crack through at some point and they'll have success.
Yeah, yeah, I know fans are, like you said earlier, getting a little bit tired of him, but I don't know what are they gonna do. You know, they'll find another offense coordinator in the middle of the system, middle of the season. I don't think there's anybody on staff that has a history of doing a better job as offensive coordinator previously, and so he's got to roll with it. And I think that there's enough personnel related issues on offense to where it's not like they just have a coordinator that has no idea what he's doing, and that's the crux of the issue. Like he needs to be better for sure, but I just think there's too many issues on the offense to pin it all on him. So I don't think this bum is too warm right now.
All right. Well, what about Gardner Minshew? I mean, it is interesting that they considered a quarterback change.
I'm not sure they were close to like pulling Gardner. I think it was just the way that Anthony answered the question in a way he does. I don't know if it was really like a big topic that I'm going to bench Gardner this week. I said the sense I get, but clearly, I mean, the offense is not working. People look at the quarterback first, but I don't think he was in any real danger this week of losing his job.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really think they view him as the issue. Not to say that he can't get better. I mean, he's turning the ball over every game that they played so far. Holding the ball too long in some of these situations, and yeah, he's a below average starting quarterback. He's only going to be so good, but I don't again like just because see somebody different doesn't mean they know what's going to be better. Like I think with them having the pass blocking issues that they're having right now, not being able to run the ball, I just don't really think it's going to be an upgrade for them. And so we'll see. Like if he goes out there and has a stinker and throws 3 interceptions or something, maybe we see a change. But right now, I just don't feel like we're at that point yet.
But didn't he say he would talk to the team about it?
He was just kind of that was his default to everything because they hadn't had the team meeting yet. Which again, even the team meeting, like they meet every Monday, like after every game, they have a meeting the next day. And so I know a lot was made out of them having a big team meeting this week, but like it was the same meeting that they always have. So I think he just wanted to make it clear to the fan base that they were upset about the result against the Panthers and considering everything and all the other cliches that we usually hear coming out of a loss like that. But again, I don't think it was really a matter of questioning who they were rolling with at quarterback.
He's not taking like a team vote. Like, are everybody in favor of Gardner? Raise your hand. Are everybody in favor of Aiden? Raise your hand. I know Devontae likes to say that he always is consulted, but I'm not sure if he was consulted on this one. I just think it's it is what it is. I think Gardner's had some, he's completing the ball at a high percentage, which is good. He's not seeing the field very well. I agree with you there. He's definitely holding on to the ball too long. And you watch the film afterwards, and you see he's missing some guys here and there, and you're wondering what he's seeing. But maybe that's just getting to a rhythm with these new receivers and the new offense. But at this point, the only hope is that it clicks. Like it clicked for a couple quarters in Baltimore, and you hope they have enough weapons where that can kind of be the new norm. But it's obviously an adjustment for him and for Luke Getsy as well. But I don't know if Luke Getsy. I think the things he values in Gardner are not reasons why you pull him. He wants the guy who's more mobile, a guy who can make some plays and can escape trouble. I think and a veteran guy with experience. And so I mean, I know Aiden came in and people like you threw a touchdown pass, but he also threw a pick that the guy dropped. So I mean, people are going to see what they want to see. But I will say this: I mean, if Gardner struggles in the first half, maybe now it's more likely you pull him earlier. I think now that Aiden's come in for garbage time, there is a precedent set where you can make that switch earlier than maybe you would later. I mean, if they're losing in a game like if they against Cleveland on Sunday, it's a game really you kind of have to win now. You kind of put yourself against the wall. So if you're really down 17 at halftime, maybe you make a switch then because you kind of have to. Now you did it last week, so you can maybe do it easier to do it again. But that's not the plan. I think the plan is to hope that Garner can get it figured out and they can score some points.
All right, but my thing with calling for Minshew's benching is I don't think Aiden O'Connell is suddenly going to come in and light it up and he's going to be the next Tom Brady. I'm just hoping for a league average quarterback. And my thing with Minshew is like a lot of times where he's not pulling the trigger, he's looking right at the receiver. So I don't understand like why he's not pulling the trigger or what's causing him to hesitate. But it's happening, and it's creating these pressures. And when Aiden O'Connell did go in, he was making some of these open throws. And one thing I think he does better than Minshew is he doesn't need a ton of room in the pocket to throw. Like he could make these throws in collapsing pockets, whereas I think Minshew really needs like a lot of space, which is why he kind of runs around a lot. But again, I don't think he's going to come in and be Tom Brady. I think that he might be better than Minshew and might be a better fit in this offense. But anyways, not going to happen this week unless they do it in game. Let's get into injuries because it just seems like, man, every team in the league is beat up and it's only week 4 right now. So let's talk about Marcus Epps. He's done for the year. Malcolm Kuntz is done for the year. Is Divine Diablo going to play? Max Crosby going to play? Thayer Munford?
I'll tell you what, I mean, I've always been convinced that Max has gotten his days off in the past on Wednesdays when he's been hurt, and I never thought it was a big deal. He was also off today. But we talked to him finally today in the locker room afterwards, and he wasn't like, I'm definitely playing. It was definitely a different answer. It's like, I'm not worried about that right now. So clearly, I mean, I think he's going to play. I expect him to play, but I don't think it's 100% like in the past where you knew he was going to get out there. So at some point, maybe they're going to take the big picture approach and say maybe a week off does you a lot of good. I doubt it, but I do think it's at least in the real possibilities now. Because before I talk to him, I think the way he answered that question was he's not 100% are going to play, which is, it's a big deal because they need him to have, like we saw last week when he played in limited capacity, the defense is not as good. And I think Diablo also didn't practice, so he's still out. I mean, I think he's highly questionable probably at this point. Mumford didn't practice today. So those Thursday guys that are out, that usually is it's not a good sign for guys playing on Sunday.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Max is ultimately going to push through and probably suit up to play. He's going to be limited though. It's not like he's going to magically feel 100% on Sunday. I mean, the high ankle sprain is a nagging injury usually that takes a few weeks to come back from, assuming that you don't, aggravate it and make it worse, obviously. But the other three, I mean, Diablo, it seems like he's most likely not going to play this week. Be interesting to see if Tommy Eichenberg gets a chance to step in there with Luke Masterson. We mentioned Marcus Epps being out for the season. It's going to have to turn to Isaiah, pull him out. He's been their third safety for the last couple of years and has rotated off the bench, but this will really be his first time starting. And Thayer Munford looks like he's most likely not going to play this week, so it'll be Glazer's first start in the NFL. And, I mean, he basically started last week, given he only, missed 2 snaps, but his first official one, taking the first snap. With Malcolm Kuntz being out, we already knew that, of course, but Tyree Wilson, I think we said it last week, but he's got to flash a little bit more. I think it's pretty big. I mean, they've been rotating, kind of having this 3-man weave between him, Janarius Robinson, and Charles Snowden last week, and I don't really think they got great results from any of them. And so he's the most likely to emerge and step up to kind of fill that void. But his Raiders defense, in general, has a few guys out, but there's really nothing in comparison to what the Browns are going through right now. Like I need to look at this injury report while I talk to get it all. So right guard Wyatt Teller, he's on IR. He's going to be out. Left tackle Jedrick Willis, he has a knee injury. He hasn't practiced, so he's questionable. Right tackle Jack Conklin has a hamstring injury. He hasn't practiced, so he's questionable. Their backup offensive lineman, their backup right tackle, uh, Dewan Jones, he's injured. He was limited. James Hudson, he's limited. So basically, their entire offensive line is injured, pretty much. Miles Garrett, he's been playing through a litany of injuries. He's probably going to suit up just like Max Crosby. They might get David Njoku back this week. He's missed the last couple games. I forgot to mention their starting left guard, Joe Bitonio. He's limited with a knee injury. So the Browns have like a very extensive injury report. Basically, their entire team is injured. So injuries aren't really an excuse for the Raiders this week. Like while they do have a few key guys injured and potentially missing this game, the Browns are way more injured than they are. So just from a health standpoint, the Raiders have the advantage this week.
And going back to the Marcus Epps injury, and when he was signed here, I think he just helped solidify the defense as far as communication and making sure he's like the coach on the field. I talked to Patrick Graham. he gave Epps a lot of credit for just making sure things are sorted out in the secondary. But he's a limited player in coverage, and we didn't see a lot of those issues crop up last year, but we were definitely seeing it this year. He didn't have a good game against the Panthers, so I'm interested to see what Isaiah is going to do stepping in for him. I think he's as a highly instinctual player, a little bit more athletic. So I'm curious to see how he plays in that safety spot and who's going to step up and fill that leadership void for Epps. Is it going to be Trayvon Morig, or is it going to be somebody else in the secondary that steps up and really gets everything sorted and make sure everybody communicates? We'll see.
And I think Paul Miles looked the part. I mean, he's definitely a tall, rangy kid. He's 6'4". We've seen him at training camp or in practice from games before. It looks like you can see he's got some potential. If he's not a guy who back up and goes in like, oh, this guy, oh my god, you hold your breath. I think he should be fine. I don't know what level we'll get to at some point, but definitely the big thing you're missing with Marcus is the play calling and the smarts and the getting guys in the right spot. And they give a lot of credit to him for Trayvon's development the last couple of years. Trayvon took a jump since Marcus got there, so I think his void can be filled in terms of on the field. The leadership thing may be a little tougher. You mentioned Trayvon. I'm not sure that's Trayvon's really forte is being kind of a outspoken guy. I think he's more a quiet type. Maybe Nate Hobbs fills that role. I'm not sure, but it's a big loss. I think Marcus, like you mentioned, may have some limitations, but definitely a lot of the success last year down the stretch, I think, was because of him. So
Yeah. So these young guys got to step up.
step up.
Um, let's get into the game preview. What are we watching when the Raiders have the ball? Hopefully, not a lot of running, but what else are we looking for?
I mean, go back to what he did in Baltimore, man. Get Brock Bowers the ball. I mean, Brock Bowers was not involved that often early on for some reason. He had a tested for concussion, but came back in. But I think if Devontae's not doing it, it has to be Bowers. So I think get those two guys going, and specifically Bowers this week because he's a tough guy to match up with. So I mean, the Browns have a lot of guys who are talented on defense, but I'm not sure they have a guy who can cover Brock Bowers. So I think get him involved early and often is my big key.
Yeah, I think it's time for them to try to air it out. As we've talked about, they just they're one of the worst run blocking teams in NFL history, apparently, according to the first 3 games of the season. So pass first to open up the run. I think it needs to be their approach. I mean, we saw the Giants last week against this Browns defense. While the Browns are known for having a pretty good secondary, I mean, Daniel Jones was giving them the blues. I mean, Malik Neighbors had a lot to do with that, making some pretty incredible catches. But I mean, the Raiders have Devontae Adams, they have and Brock Bowers. Mentioned 2 guys that they should be able to exploit matchups, and so I think it's time to air it out. See if they can get the offense going and potentially get ahead, and then at that point maybe it's a little bit easier to run the ball. But I think that shift in the approach is what I'm going to be looking for the most.
Yeah, the Browns are a heavy man team. They play a lot of man. They don't really double team a lot. They kind of trust their guys to play. So this could be a big Devonte Adams game. They give up a lot of yak too. When they're not playing man, they play a lot of soft zone. So they'll give up those catches underneath, and they haven't been great at tackling. They are the 8th worst team as far as yards after catch per reception. So that means get the ball to Brock Bowers and let him run underneath. I don't think they did a good enough job of just trying to get the ball into Bowers' hands last week. So I think the game plan this week should be give him the ball however you can. Get him a bubble screen, get him the ball in the flats, whatever you can. Let him run with the ball because this Browns team will give up some yards after catch.
One thing we should mention about Devontae was he did show up on the injury report today, a hamstring injury, which I guess happened during practice. I'm not sure how serious it is. I don't think it's that serious, but he did. I mean, his name's on the report. That was a new development today.
Yeah, and also tight end Michael Mayer, he missed today due to a personal reason. I'm not sure what that is, but we'll see. I mean, hamstrings are tricky. You can get out there and test on game day and not be able to go. So definitely something to monitor for Devontae, and that'd be a huge loss.
Yeah, and if he's limited or not himself, then Trey Tucker, he's that deep threat, and against man coverage, you're going to get some shots. So this could be one of those games for Trey Tucker, and we've seen him have some big games when teams try to play man against him last year. So when the Browns have the ball, what are we watching for?
I mean, in the past, they've tried to kind of get their running game going. That's kind of been their foundation. It hasn't worked this year, so I think the Raiders have been, their defense has not been great against the run. So ideally, you don't give a lot of yards to Jerome Ford, but he's not a bad back. I think if you got to stop the run, I think that's what they're going to try and establish, much like the Raiders are going to try and establish it on their end. And then at that point, you free up Deshaun Watson to get some stuff done. So I think limit the running game, therefore you can limit Deshaun Watson. He has been the same guy he was 3 years ago. So I think don't give him a chance to be that guy. Kind of keep the pressure on him and don't give him too much room to operate.
Yeah, I think the Raiders really got to get the pass rush going in this one. Like the Browns last week, I think they gave up 8 sacks, I believe, to the Giants. Obviously, the Giants are a very formidable defensive line, but I think as much of the issue is that Browns offensive line is really just destroyed right now by injuries, which we talked about. And, I mean, the Raiders have had the worst pass rush in the league so far this season. They're last in pressure rate, at bottom 5 in sacks. And they've been aggressive. I mean, from a play calling standpoint, I mean, Patrick Graham is typically a guy doesn't blitz a whole bunch, but they're top 5 in blitz rate. Some of that is because they've been using more 5-man fronts, which technically counts as a blitz. But they've been blitzing pretty often. And they still haven't been able to get much pressure at all, and I think that's been a mix of obviously losing Kuntz, Max Crosby being hurt, but also on the interior, they aren't getting the pass rush that they expected. And so, I mean, you're going against a team that's really, I don't know if there's another offensive line in the league that's in a worse state than the Browns right now. And so, if the pass rush is ineffective again this week, even with Max Crosby being hampered, I think that's going to be a really rough sign for this defense.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why they're not getting home on these blitzes is they're playing a lot of soft zone. I think this week you got to try to get in those receivers' faces, press them a little bit, make Deshaun hold the ball for half a second longer, and make that offensive line work. I mean, this line is going to be more depleted than it was last week against the Giants, possibly. I mean, both tackles might be out. Those tackles played in the game against the Giants, and they still gave up those sacks. So um, if those guys are out, this defensive line really has to take advantage. And I think even if Crosby plays at 60%, he might be able to get a sack on this line. Um, Another thing, with I don't know if it's a direct result of Crosby not being 100%, but Christian Wilkins got double teamed 26 times against the Panthers, which is extremely high rate. So if teams aren't focused on Crosby, then they're going to be focused on taking away Christian Wilkins, and that means somebody else is going to have to win. I mean, Wilkins, I think, will still get some pressure, but who's going to step up? Is it going to be Tyree, who I thought had a pretty encouraging game last week, or is it going to be Adam Butler inside? Somebody else is going to have to win, especially if Crosby's not at 100%.
Yeah, I mean, teams have been able to take Wilkins out of it from a pass rush standpoint this season. And right now, he has a pressure rate of 4.3%, according to True Media, which is 203rd in the NFL right now. And so a lot of that seems to be with him getting double teamed, but also just, not being the game record that they anticipated. Obviously, early in the season, so we'll see if he's able to turn it around. But there's only so many somebody else's, you know what I mean? On this defensive line with Koontz being hurt, Crosby being hampered, like they need their big money guys to step up and play well, especially going against offensive line like this. And so double team be damned, they need to make some noise back there and get after Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I've been rough on Tyree in the past, but I talked to him today. I do think he has some confidence going. I think that, like last year, I wouldn't say that was the case. Last year was a little lost, maybe felt a little pressure, a little too much. This year, I don't think he's feeling any pressure. He's been working pretty hard and he's trying to work on his eyes better, like the vision, what he sees as far as the line of scrimmage and how teams are adjusting to his pass rushes. So I think he's got the right mindset. I think he knows this is kind of his time. He's going to have plenty of reps to make some plays. I think he's looking forward to the challenge. So I think there's a little more hope there than I would have thought in the past with Tyree.
Yeah, and another thing is, it doesn't. I don't think this is a game where you have to blitz that much. I think you just need to play coverage and make this offensive line work those one on ones, especially if they're down to their third, second string tackles. So yeah, you're gonna have to get home with your 4-man rush and try to contain Deshaun Watson. Um, and let's get into our matchups of the game. What matchups are you guys looking for?
Well, it was one big obvious one. Got the I think it's the first time, right? The first revenge game for
For Coop,
receiver Amari Cooper. I think Coop
yeah.
versus this Raiders secondary. I guess I would say matchup. I'm not sure if the Raiders are gonna have somebody travel with him around the field, but him versus the secondary, I think he's gonna be pretty motivated coming in here against the Raiders for the first time in Allegiant Stadium. The secondary, lost a big piece in Epps for the season, and I think it hasn't been as good as advertised even when he was out there. I think at cornerback, I think Ja'Cory Bennett's been solid, but Jack Jones hasn't been the difference maker in the same way that he was last season. And Ted mentioned earlier, Nate Hobbs had some struggles against the Panthers, and so I think Cooper is really the only juice this Browns offense has had, if you would say that this offense has had any juice through the first 3 weeks of the season. And so I think whether they're able to bottle him up is really going to determine whether they're able to select the Browns on offense.
Yeah, slow start. He had a big week last week, and he's a very savvy guy. He definitely, I would think Ja'Cory would be a tough matchup just because of his experience, and they could probably counteract Ja'Cory's physicality pretty well. So I have to think of Jack Jones on him most of the time. And Jack hasn't had a great start to the year either, but I think it's a tough matchup. Like I said, Coop is and people give him a hard time because his body language is not great, and I think maybe he doesn't love football as much as the other guys do. But he's been doing it for a long time now. He's definitely very consistent. And he can make the sideline catch. He can beat a guy and block a guy out. He can beat him deep. I think he's a very complete receiver. Who I'm sure he'll never say this, but I'm sure it's a big game for me. He knows what people thought of him here, and kind of when he was gone, it wasn't like everyone's like, "Oh, we lost Cooper." It was kind of like, it didn't really. It wasn't really one of us. So I think it's a big game for him. I think he'll be motivated. I think he's a tough matchup for either Jack Jones or Ja'Cory Bennett.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Bennett's not. I mean, Ja'Cory's like a taller corner, and he has played well, especially on those boundary passes where they try to get him on a sideline. But against like a really shifty guy like Amari Cooper, that could be a pretty tough matchup. And I think Nate Hobbs might have the body type to be a little bit better, but he got burnt by Deontay Johnston last week, so hopefully he has a bounce back game against Amari Cooper. And where Amari Cooper actually has been really dangerous is in the red zone. So, I think you can kind of guarantee that you'll see a lot of man coverage in the red zone, and that's where Amari eats. He's one of the better route runners in this league for a long time.
I was going to say he's had some really bad quarterback play too. Deshaun Watson has not been good for a while, so I think it's also a tribute to him. But yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see him again. Fun to see what he does. I'm not sure if Raider fans, the new Las Vegas fans, care too much about Amari Cooper, but let's just say once a Raider, always a Raider. So I think but we'll see what he does.
Yeah, the matchup I'll watch out for is Miles Garrett against either Glaze or Mumford. I mean, it's he's so good. Like he could wreck the game by himself. I mean, he's dealing with a ton of injuries. I mean, I think every part of his body's hurt right now. But even at whatever he's going to play at 70, he's a game wrecker. And obviously they're going to try to help him help as much as he can with chip blocks. But he could do everything. He could run through you. He could speed rush you. Like he could run through chips. Like it's going to be a very very difficult matchup.
You don't need to travel cornerbacks. Why can't you travel like tackles? Why can't you travel Cole Miller from side to side? That's what I would do.
Yeah. And Getsy called Garrett the best player in the league today. That
Yeah,
was
Raider fans
quite
are
the
like,
statement.
Max
Oh,
Crosby
yeah. Okay, get
cannot
some
be
Crosby
mad.
motivation. Yeah.
yeah.
Get him
But
fired up.
yeah, I don't think he meant it that way. But I mean, he's not wrong, right? The guy was the defensive player of the year last year, and I think in terms of those guys who are in the higher echelon, I think it is Max and Miles Garrett and probably T.J. Watt, probably the three best guys. I may have forgetting somebody, but I think those three.
Micah Parsons pretty good, but yeah, they're
All right,
in
Michael
also
Parsons,
right.
but yeah. So I mean, there's very few guys at that level. I don't think Max should have a big problem with Luke saying that, but you never know.
All right, what's your matchup? Is that Amari Cooper too?
Uh, well, I mean, I think it's the running games, right? Whichever team can run the ball is going to win the game, probably. So I think ideally, Zamir White gets going, or
Oh,
I don't.
I think the Raiders might lose then. If
But I think the answer is going to be neither there. I think
Well,
that's
some
probably
have better day. I mean, they can't be tied. Someone have more yards rushing and better yards per
yeah,
carry
that's true.
average. So, man, Luke Getsy says we're making progress, man. I'm a believer, and people hopefully they're not lying to us. So maybe we'll see some signs of progress. But because theoretically, like you said, it should not be a bad match as far as this new run scheme. It kind of fits the O line. Maybe they're getting. I mean, the Browns are banged up. I mean, but so yeah, the matchup to me is a two-winning game. So whoever runs the ball in my mind, Bella's going to win the game.
All right, let's get into our X factors. My X factor is going to be Tyree Wilson. We talked about it. Can he take advantage of those one-on-one matchups? Build on his pretty good game last week against a very beat up Browns defensive line and offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's Tyree. Gotta make some shit shake at some point. You know what I mean? But I know that they've been very careful with expectations. He needs more reps, all this stuff. But like, gotta do something eventually. You know what I mean? And they need him in a bad way with the way the pass rush is right now. And I think going against this Browns offensive line, like you need a breakthrough performance for him. So maybe this ends up being.
My X factor is going to be Trey Tucker. I'm going to say he makes a big play running the ball on an end around or reverse to get the. I mean, I think and we showed some big plays in the past, catching the ball last week. So I think they'll find him a little bigger of a role because obviously he has some juice to him, and maybe end around goes for a big play
All right,
or
so
jet sweep, maybe a jet sweep. But we'll see.
so Trey Tucker check on the rushing touchdown bet from Vic Tafur.
I'm not sure you can find those odds, but if you can,
Yeah,
unload,
big
lock and load.
All
Max
right.
win.
Yeah, and one more thing I found pretty interesting, or an interesting stat from last year, is the home and away splits for the Browns defense is pretty startling. And some people think it's because they rely a lot on snap count, and obviously when teams have to go silent count, it's a pretty big disadvantage for that pass rush and handling the blitz and communication and all that. And yeah, the Raiders are playing at home, so that might be an advantage, a little bit of an X factor.
It wasn't last week, but yeah,
It
maybe it
wasn't.
is.
It was not. All right, so let's get into our predictions. Our favorite part of the show. I know fans love it.
We're 0 for 3, right? 0 for 3 on the year.
0
Yeah,
for 3.
yeah,
0 for
0 for
3.
3, baby. Can't,
yeah. Well, Vic already made his prediction last week. So tell us.
I did. I go with the Browns. Browns by a final score of 24-20. I'll say. I think. Yeah, I think they're probably. I mean, I know as bad as Deshaun Watson's been, he still might say he might be the best quarterback in the field. I think Max Crosby, if he can play, how good is he going to be? I know Miles Garrett's in the same kind of boat, but I don't think Max is going to be the same kind of guy you need him to be. And so I think the defense is definitely going to be limited with him out and Marcus Epps out and Kuntz out and Diablo out. There's a lot of holes. Some of the Browns have some injuries too, but for me, those holes are bigger. I think the Browns could probably take more advantage of those than the Raiders can. So I'll say 24-20.
And Neil, could we get like a applause sound effect or something because Vic took the? There we go. Vic did it. Raider fans needed us to disagree on a pick, and Vic took the bullet. So yeah,
Or are you disagreeing? Are you picking the Raiders?
I'm gonna pick the Raiders to win. I think
Okay.
the Browns are a very bad team. They are injured. They lost to the New York Giants, who are a very bad team. I think the Raiders will get some of that. I don't know, some of that Antonio Pierce magic.
This is not very fucking convincing.
Come in and play a good game. I think they learned their lesson. They're not going to try to force the run. Maybe to iron out some of those issues that are we saw in film, and maybe Gardner Minshew just pulls a trigger on some of these passes that he's passing up, and they move the ball efficiently. Like I said, the Browns team, they give up some yak. I think they'll be smart and get Brock Bowers the ball. Devontae Adams is good with yak. I think Trey Tucker catches a deep pass for either an explosive pass play or a touchdown. Final score, I'm gonna say 20-16.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm going with the Raiders too. I got them winning 18-17. I think they're gonna
Ooh, 1 point
one
game.
score a touchdown at the end and go for it. 2 point conversion, win the game. That's how they're gonna pull it out at home. Dramatic win. Brock Bowers is gonna catch the 2 point conversion. There you go.
Wow,
Raiders win.
All right.
that's quite the prediction. Got every detail. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta be specific.
All right. Let's get into fan questions. Raider J asks, do you guys think it would be a good idea for Getsy to do more design rollouts and read options with Minshew? It seems like he's not comfortable playing in structure and struggles to see the whole field of the pocket. he looks the most comfortable playing off script and improvising.
What do you think, Ted?
I think those plays
I
are in
think,
there. I think. Oh, good.
yeah, like those plays are in the playbook because I think they led the league in rollouts and bootlegs last year with Justin Fields. Um, yeah, I like that idea to get him outside the pocket more. But I would not run any read options with Gardner Minshew. Like I get it, he's more athletic than Aiden O'Connell, but that doesn't put him in the upper echelon of running quarterbacks, and he'll get killed.
Which is what you want, right? Then you got Aiden can play.
I never said
Yeah.
that. All right, I never said
Wow. Wow. Knock on
that.
wood, man.
Don't put
Injury
those words in
jokes.
my mouth.
Injury jokes. Yeah, I think getting him on the move works. Like he's not. We gotta temper the Minshew athleticism. Read options now, but getting him on the move, sure, why not?
I don't know. If you want the full Minshew Mania experience, you gotta let everything go, man. Just like, try everything. Read options, naked boots. Let's get the Mania.
All right, pull out the Justin Fields package for
Yes.
Garner Minshew. All right, next question. Devontae Adams mentioned the offense is still trying to figure it out. Do you guys believe they are, or does the offensive system just suck? The autumn wind.
I don't think it should suck. I mean, it has sucked at times this year, but I think there's a lot of talent in this team. I mean, they got. I mean, Adams and Bowers, and I mean, Jacoby Myers is a pretty good, number 2 or 3 guy. I mean, Trey Tucker's got some explosiveness. There's definitely enough talent in this offense where he shouldn't have trouble scoring points. I don't think so. If the quarterback is halfway decent, so I don't think it sucks. I think they're trying to figure things out, and they're trying to the wide zone run scheme. I mean, if they ever gets comfortable with it, it might be a good thing. But so yeah, I think it's still it sucks to say. I'm sure it sucks to hear. It's a work in progress, but it really is. You can't really panic at this point because if you do that, I think you kind of maybe put yourself in a worse spot if you kind of abandon course right now. You got to hope that you actually are making progress and players are buying in. You are actually seeing improvement. So I think it's a good. I mean, last week would have been a nice time to show it, but now you got a team that's banged up in the Browns, a lot of injuries, so you should be able to kind of search your will at some point. I would think in this game if you want to really be a team that can be in the playoff chase at all this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen this iterations of this type of offense have a lot of success around the league. You know, McCarthy, LaFleur, Shanahan type of offenses. But it's one thing to like have those plays, in your playbook, but it's another thing to execute them. And I think that's been what's lacked, so far this season. Ted, in your breakdown, I mean, you pointed out one of those run concepts, for example, where they had Brock Bowers motioning to be a blocker, like you've seen teams do that successfully in the past, but they fucked up the execution, so it didn't work. You know what I mean? So I think that's the missing piece right now. I think the people like the plays. I mean, Devontae Adams has played in this offense before in Green Bay. Obviously, they had Aaron Rodgers. It's a different situation, but I think the scheme is fine. It's just about whether they can use it in a productive way.
Yeah, I agree. Like people are accusing Getsy of not being creative, but I do think he is trying to be creative. He's getting the trendy plays and putting them in the playbook. He's trying different things, but it's all about the details. Like the blocking. Like you got to be able to handle a linebacker run through, spacing with their concepts. Like sometimes it feels like the timing's off. This receiver's here a little too early. This receiver's here a little too late. So you got to be able to iron out those details. I don't think it's a problem with creativity, but you got to be able to execute. And I don't know if it's the way they're teaching it. Are they trying too many things, or are these players just not paying attention or not doing their part? But I don't know what it is. I'm not trying to blame any. I'm not trying to blame. I'm not trying to put the blame on Getsy. I'm not trying to put the. I'm saying I'm from an outside perspective looking in. I don't know whose fault it is, but the details are definitely lacking, and I don't think it's because of a lack of creativity.
And you can't be too creative when it's always 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6. I mean, there's that limits what you can do and limits how teams approach you in the pass rush. So ideally, do get more success in early downs, which I think would help him kind of be able to open the playbook a little more. I think because you get into a bad rut if you are always in 3rd and 6. So yeah, I mean, we thought there was a breakthrough in Baltimore, and it didn't happen. Maybe they try and have some luck get it going again this week. But at some point, I have to get some momentum going and kind of some confidence and some rhythm. The offense is a lot about rhythm. There's really no rhythm in this offense so far.
Yeah. All right. Next question. How on earth were the Raiders flat for the home opener? Seriously, with the organization's history How can they look past any opponent and expect to just show up and win? All the talk of energy, intensity, passion of playing under AP, where was that? By Snake 81211.
Damn.
I know flat's a popular phrase people use about teams like where you guys come out flat. I think it was the case more Sunday was they got knocked in the face really good, like a good clean shot in the jaw because Dalton came out, was on fire, the offense was moving. All of a sudden you're on your heels. I think they kind of didn't respond. I think it took a pretty big hit and didn't really fight back. I think they kind of really were in shock for a while. By the time they came around, had a big hole. So I think it was more not coming out flat, but more like not being really ready in that first drive for what was coming, expecting the big hit, and you kind of Dalton came out hot. I think they were behind the eight ball, so I just think they didn't respond well. I think they kind of, which is not a good thing. It's also not positive if you take a you want to be able to fight back and be able to take a punch and kind of show your toughness and punch back. I think they kind of were lacking in that area in terms of how they responded on Sunday.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about it. And Samuel Pierce thought that they had a really strong week of practice last week, and I think he said the first drive of the game when the Panthers went down there. I think we all saw it and tweeted oh right away. Like
Yeah,
you could just tell like, they didn't show up to play. That happens sometimes, but important thing moving forward is not to let it happen again. They're saying all the right things this week, but it really doesn't matter if they don't go out there and show it starting early, on Sunday against the Browns. I do think it's going to be a hard fought game. I don't think they're going to roll as teams. I do think that as injured as they are, I do think the Browns defense is still pretty good. So I think it's gonna be a grinded out, low scoring type of game, but they want to see that level of effort and passion and all that be consistent. And that was absent last week. And if it is again this week, they're gonna have some tough conversations moving forward.
more business decisions coming up.
Uh,
Whatever that means.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but this is a must-win game.
Ah, it's a must-win game. We're back to the
Must-win
must-win
game.
game. Ah,
we're back. We're back.
Yeah,
we had the must-win. We had the must-cover. We had homecoming week, and now we're back to a must-win.
we're back to must-win. I mean, like,
I was
you
calling it
have to be able to respond to a letdown
response.
like that. You have to be able to respond. Like, if you don't respond at this spot against a bad Browns team at home,
Are they really bad though? I mean, you keep saying they're a bad team. The defense has got some. I mean,
they lost to the Giants. No, they
I
have talent, but you lost to the
it was one of the
Giants.
top
You
defenses
lose
in
to
the
the
league
Giants at
last year, right?
home.
I mean, Giants have Malik Neighbors. Like, I mean, he's freaking.
That's it. That's it.
He's really freaking good. I mean, and they have
Oh,
other.
yeah.
Daniel Jones played actually pretty well last week. So I just don't. I mean, I'm not sure the Browns are a bad team. I think their defense is still pretty good, and they're hurt. But I know Deshaun and I were talking this week about our labels, and we came up with elimination game. I think the loser of this game is in real trouble. Like the loser of this game is 1-3, and pretty much, you never want to say toast, but it'll be tough to come back from 1-3 with a loss to a person ahead of you already, in non-divisional opponents. So I think it definitely the loser of this game is in bad shape.
Yeah, if the Raiders lose this game, you shut everything down. You just pack it up. You get ready for get ready for next season.
Wow, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that maybe you listen to some phone calls. The phone rings, you don't hang up right away. Like, hey, what do you guys want? Oh, okay.
oh,
17?
oh,
17? No, 17.
Oh,
Oh,
okay, okay.
I see where you're going there.
Interesting,
yeah,
interesting. Okay, all right. Well, that's it. And there is no curse this week. All right, so don't get at me and get at us on Twitter because I mean it. I don't know if you guys are serious, but that was pretty.
Dead ass serious.
were you hurt? Did they hurt your feelings?
No, but I was just surprised
They
at the
came after you.
intensity they were coming at me with. Like it's a real curse, you know. So
I mean, to their credit, when we got three bozos who are picking the same thing 3 weeks in a row, and it happens the opposite way. I mean, that's definitely something to be yelled at about. But you're right. There's no curse, just bad luck.
but they weren't even mad at the players. They were like, "It's your fault. You picked them."
I think they're
I was
okay
like,
with it.
"Oh,
I think
okay."
they're mad at the players a little bit. I think that they were not really happy in general. Probably mad at the
Yeah.
coach, mad at the players, mad at us because we all said it was. I mean, you were kind of like maybe a close game, but we were saying it was going to be a blowout, and it was just the other way around. So
Yeah, we were right.
we were right. Yeah, it was a blowout.
It was a blowout. Yeah. All right. Well, no curse this week.
No
Make
curse.
sure no curse. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button on YouTube, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple. And we will catch you live after the game. And, maybe the Raiders win.
It's a very winnable game.
Oh, God.
Oh, jeez. Well, it's your fault. I ain't saying no shit like that. All right, y'all.
All
Talk
right,
to you
brother.
later.
Peace.
Bye.
Adios.